She cut me off mid-sentence. I was 3 slides into our quarterly board presentation, walking through fiduciary checkpoints and the new oversight triggers we'd just implemented, when Lauren Jessup raised a hand, then dropped a bomb. "We're restructuring oversight," she said, her voice cool, rehearsed. "Effective immediately, your role is dissolved. Security is on the way." For half a second, the room froze. No one moved. Even the chairman blinked like he'd misheard her. I didn't look at her. I just closed the laptop in front of me, calmly placed my badge on the table, and stood up. "Check your email," I said quietly. "The board's reconvening in 90 minutes. Then I walked out. If you're enjoying this story, take a second to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the team bring you more of these. Back in the hallway, I could hear the muffled start of confusion behind me. Chairs shifting, low voices, the rhythm of certainty unraveling one note at a time. But I didn't linger. I didn't need to. Lauren had no idea what she'd just done, and that was the most dangerous kind of arrogance. She'd never read the charter. For nearly a decade, I'd operated quietly at Halberton Capital. No spotlight, no theatrics. I oversaw governance compliance, those invisible structures that held the entire machine together. Clause timing, quorum thresholds, audit trails. I didn't bark orders, but nothing happened without my review. Mergers, executive votes, bonus structures, stock option triggers, all of it required silent clearance. Mine. People like Lauren don't notice people like me. We're not flashy. We don't have TED Talk voices or flashy college taglines next to our names. We're policy lifers. Custodians of the rules no one wants to read, but everyone will feel when they break them. Lauren came in swinging. New title, new swagger. A thin smile that didn't reach her eyes. She talked in bullet points and buzzwords. She brought a new assistant with her. Someone who nodded too quickly and didn't know where the archive room was. The kind of pair that believes speed is more important than weight. Her first move was rebranding. Her second was trimming institutional drag. I wasn't surprised when my name showed up on the hit list she handed to HR. I wasn't supposed to see it, but HR is connected. They give quiet warnings when someone's firing blind. She called my division non-revenue overhead in one of her memos, said we created unnecessary friction in the expansion pipeline. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that my team had 5A credentials. Specifically, I had filed for Section 5A protection 5 months earlier. She didn't read that far. Section 5A was designed to protect certain governance roles from sudden removal without due process. It's rarely used, only triggered when someone's position intersects with board-level fiduciary functions. Most execs don't bother with it. I did, quietly. After a merger proposal, I blocked Drew heat from someone in New York. The filing was time-stamped, board ratified, and most importantly, built into the system itself. So when she terminated me mid-slide, she unknowingly triggered a protocol block. By the time she'd sit down again, she'd find her hires unfunded, her votes frozen, and the system blinking red with messages she wouldn't understand. I walked out the front entrance and didn't say a word. There were no raised voices, no power struggle, just one quiet sentence, and a cascade she couldn't stop. 2 weeks before that board meeting, Lauren's assistant forwarded a sleek 1-page proposal to HR. No greeting, no context, just bullets. Remove redundancy in governance. Terminate legacy compliance. Immediate effect preferred. The subject line was Phase 1, Frictionless Ops. I wasn't copied on the email, but I didn't need to be. One of the HR partners flagged it for me within the hour, off the record. She just said, "You might want to check the pipeline." I already had. Lauren had come in fast. She didn't schedule listening tours, didn't ask for system diagrams or transition protocols. She started with optics, said phrases like org agility and non-core optimization. I've been in the game long enough to translate every buzzword into blood. I knew what she was doing. The first cut is always compliance. She started by questioning why I even sat in on executive meetings, said my presence wasn't aligned with expansion objectives, that I was part of an old framework that needed to be sunset. She never asked what my actual role entailed. Most people don't realize governance isn't just policy enforcement. It's timing, it's weight distribution. It's protecting the company from tripping over its own ambitions. And more importantly, it's encoded into every major decision-making mechanism, especially when you do it right. I did it right. 5 months earlier, during a silent overhaul of our risk audit chain, I filed for Clause 5A credentialing. It's not something you announce, you just file, meet the thresholds, and let the system validate the credential. Once it's registered, it becomes part of the internal compliance schema, quiet, invisible, and loaded with power. Section 3.7(c) of the Charter, buried between compensation rotation schedules and affiliate merger safeguards, makes it clear any termination of a 5A credentialed officer requires a board reconvention, with quorum, and oversight review. Lauren didn't read that far. She assumed governance was a relic, a box-checking role tied to paper trails and quarterly updates. She didn't realize it was wired into every executive function she relied on. Terminating me without proper procedure wouldn't just ruffle feathers, it would detonate protocol triggers. But I didn't correct her. She moved like a shark in shallow water, confident, fast, certain no one would dare question her trajectory. And I let her go. I watched as she signed the early HR directive and called it a clean split. She looked so pleased with herself when she handed the memo to the chief of staff. I didn't blink. There's an art to moving slowly when others rush. It's not passive, it's not weakness, it's control. Lauren thought speed meant strength, but she forgot one thing. Speed doesn't matter when you're sprinting toward a locked door. The room was full. Directors, committee leads, 2 outside observers from legal. I just finished the 4th slide, the update on fiduciary gatekeeping protocols, a few nods from the far end of the table, the chairman tapping notes into his tablet. Routine. Then, without warning, Lauren raised a hand, not to ask a question, just to signal silence. Her voice was steady, polished. Effective immediately, your role has been dissolved. Security will escort you out. There was a beat of confusion. One of the board members even turned, as if she'd misheard. Lauren didn't flinch. She didn't look at me, just continued flipping through her own deck, already queued up on her tablet. I didn't say a word. Didn't give her the satisfaction of a protest. I closed my laptop, unclipped my badge, and placed it quietly in front of me. Then, calmly, I looked up and said, "Check your email. The board's reconvening in 90 minutes." Her assistant flinched. Lauren laughed, short, dismissive, like I'd cracked a joke that didn't land. But the laugh didn't last. The pause after came with the kind of stillness that seeps into a room when something important has just shifted and no one knows quite what yet. Her fingers stopped scrolling. Someone at the table shifted uncomfortably. I turned and walked out. I could feel eyes on my back. Not sympathy, not shock, just curiosity, like they'd just witnessed something quiet but significant, and no one was sure what it meant yet. In the hallway, the elevator ride down was silent. No security, no rush. Just me and the hum of something inevitable beginning to move. Lauren didn't realize it then, but the moment she cut me off, the system began responding, the same system she hadn't taken the time to understand. The reconvening wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a reaction. It was a protocol, triggered the moment she signed off on my termination without proper quorum. A digital lever embedded in the oversight framework, one I had configured myself 6 months earlier, and now it was in motion, whether she liked it or not. The first cracks showed within 20 minutes. While I walked calmly through the front lobby, Lauren's office upstairs began unraveling. Not loud, not visible from the hallway, but deep, like the kind of silence that hits when a system's logic stops making sense to the people trying to control it. Board operations tried to pull the vote lock logs for the next executive session. Access denied. The screen flashed red. Locked. Reconvening pending. Lauren asked one of her analysts to rerun the compliance flowcharts. They couldn't. The templates had reverted to prior versions and marked themselves pending article review. Her expansion onboarding tracker, 3 new roles she'd pre-announced last week, threw up budget flags. The finance system auto-paused line items under her name. She told them to override it, but the override button was grayed out. Someone in strategic ops flagged the voting sheets. Every scheduled board motion, comp package approvals, capital deployment, even a minor fund reallocation was marked in limbo. System reason, pending reconvened quorum. Then came the emails. Legal flagged the removal of a credentialed officer without due process. Risk compliance issued a soft hold on all affiliated contract signatures, and one of the onboarding analysts raised her hand and asked, "Who put these triggers in?" No one had an answer. Lauren brushed it off at first. Said it was a glitch, told it to escalate, but IT already had. And they weren't calling her. They were calling governance. Or rather, they were trying. Because with my badge disabled and my seat officially vacant, the system defaulted into fail-safe mode. Protocols I designed to protect fiduciary logic from unauthorized alteration were firing all at once. Not out of vengeance, not out of rebellion, just code doing what it was built to do. Lauren paced, issued orders, pressured the internal liaison from legal. But the systems weren't listening to her. The architecture didn't recognize her authority, because she hadn't updated the governance chain correctly, because she didn't know how. The panic stayed quiet, contained to closed Slack channels and locked down inboxes, but the pattern was spreading. Every lever she thought she controlled was now held in a digital waiting room, waiting for the very thing she'd tried to skip, a board reconvening. And when someone finally asked the room, "Can we just reverse the termination?" the chief of staff replied, "Not without triggering audit review," which meant, no, not quickly, not cleanly. She'd yanked the wrong wire, and now the entire machine was blinking red, waiting for a key that no longer sat in her pocket. By noon, they found it. One of the in-house counsels, Amanda, I think, dug through the archive logs and surfaced the clause. A quiet motion, ratified 6 months prior, embedded in a quarterly resolution under Governance Continuity Enhancements. Section 5A, fully credentialed, filed, time-stamped, board acknowledged, my name on it, my credentials cross-verified, my protection baked into the compliance chain. The clause was simple, 1 paragraph. Any termination of a certified 5A officer requires reconvened vote quorum and external audit check. Lauren hadn't done either. She didn't know she'd triggered a mandatory lock, a procedural safeguard meant to prevent exactly what she'd attempted, a unilateral removal of the only oversight mechanism with authority across every layer of decision-making. The moment she removed me, the system responded like it had been trained. It froze. Board actions, held. Budget votes, flagged. Merger negotiations put on hold pending audit trail verification. Worse, some of the financial instruments Lauren had initiated, revenue forecasts tied to investor disclosures, were now legally unverifiable without my sign-off. One misstep, one eagerness to assert dominance, and she jammed the core engine of the company she was trying to reshape. Legal pulled the trigger history and saw it. The timestamp of her action, the immediate chain reaction of system flags. The emails that fired off quietly in the background. To risk, to audit, to the chairman's private compliance inbox. Everything had been routed correctly. Everything had been planned. Lauren, by now, was quiet. The confidence had slipped. Her posture at the table had changed. I wasn't there to see it, but I know the type. The realization always hits hard, that the person you dismissed as legacy was actually the only one holding the scaffolding together. She thought removing me would make her stronger. Instead, she severed her own momentum. Every frictionless plan she'd laid out, expansion, reorg, rebranding, required motion, and I'd been the key to motion, quietly, invisibly, until I wasn't. She tried to force a reset. What she got was lockdown. By early afternoon, the phones wouldn't stop. Investor relations called first. "Why is the expansion fund frozen? We just announced the new vertical." Then corporate development. The merger vote bounced again. The system's not recognizing quorum validation. Then finance. "Why is legal blocking the release of the second tranche? It was pre-approved." Each call landed on Lauren's desk like a live wire. She answered the first few with tight confidence, assuring them it was a temporary permissions issue. But then legal called the chairman directly, and he asked just one question. "Who authorized this?" Silence. Legal had the motion on screen. The termination order, digitally signed by Lauren Jessup at 10:14 a.m. during an active board presentation. No quorum, no audit, no reconvening. A clean, bold action, wrapped in complete procedural violation. The moment she clicked approve, the governance protocol had done what it was designed to do. Lock, hold, flag, one click, one unassuming, arrogant click. And the entire system shifted into containment mode. The chairman didn't raise his voice. He never did. But when he repeated the question, "Who authorized this?" Legal answered with a screenshot. It was hers. Her name, her credentials, her timestamp, clear as daylight. That single motion had triggered a cascade of automated safeguards, hundreds of subroutines I had woven into place over the years, not to protect myself, to protect the system, from people exactly like her. Lauren wasn't a strategist. She thought she was because she moved quickly, made confident decisions, spoke like she belonged in documentaries. But speed without depth is just noise. She hadn't studied the architecture, she hadn't read the bylaws, she didn't ask why the oversight division was designed the way it was. She just wanted it gone. She didn't see the wires. So she kicked one, and the light started to flicker. The emergency board session was set for 2:00 p.m. sharp. Calendar invites were dispatched through the system without ceremony, just a red flag on everyone's dashboards. Reconvening required. Governance trigger active. Lauren saw the session pop up and tried to cancel it herself. She called the scheduling admin, sent an urgent request to the board's coordinator, even tried rerouting through her assistant's login. But it didn't matter. The reconvening protocol had already been triggered automatically when she executed the unauthorized termination. And once activated, it couldn't be halted manually. Only the board in full quorum could dismiss it, and they hadn't. So at 1:59, they gathered. The chairman arrived early, as did 2 legal observers. The CFO logged in remotely from Sao Paulo. Risk and audit were both present, seated silently along the wall. It was a tight room, intentional. Lauren entered and tried to take her usual seat. That's when the chairman looked up and said, "Lauren, we'll need the room." She hesitated, blinked. "I'm the acting VP," she said, gesturing toward the screen. "This concerns my vertical." "No," the chairman replied calmly. "It concerns your motion." She didn't move. Not right away. Then she turned to the 2 security personnel posted near the door, expecting reinforcement, a reminder of status, a show of presence. But they didn't move either, because as of 10:14 that morning, when she terminated a credentialed 5A officer without quorum, her access to governance-sensitive meetings had been suspended. Automatically, not by human choice, but by protocol. Technically, she was already locked out. The badge swipe wouldn't have worked. The recording permissions had already been revoked. Even her name on the access list had vanished, scrubbed by the same code she thought she could bypass. She'd played power games without reading the rules. And now, in front of a full boardroom of people who had read them, she stood quietly, realizing she no longer had the authority to argue her way in. The chairman didn't raise his voice. He just turned slightly toward the door. Lauren stepped out, alone. They didn't waste time. Once the door closed behind Lauren, the board turned to the logs. System entries, timestamp trails, termination motion metadata, everything lined up. Legal displayed the sequence on the wall screen like a crime scene reconstruction. 10:14 a.m., unauthorized termination of a credentialed 5A officer. 10:14:07, trigger protocol initiated. 10:14:43, governance lock cascade. By 10:16, the first board notice had auto-fired. The chairman watched it all unfold without blinking. After 15 minutes of review, the room went quiet. Then, in a voice just above a whisper, someone said, "The trigger's valid." No one argued. The vote to nullify Lauren's session came fast. Unanimous. No abstentions. It was logged, recorded, and immediately sent to legal for filing. Then came the second vote, restoring oversight continuity by reinstating my credential and access. "Temporarily," one of them said, almost reflexively. But the chairman didn't repeat the word. He didn't smile, didn't offer commentary or soften the decision with corporate platitudes. He just turned to the board secretary and asked, "Effective immediately?" She nodded. He looked back at the group. "Then don't ever let this happen again." No one responded. There wasn't anything to say. It wasn't about revenge. No one was out for blood. But the message was clear. Speed without comprehension would not be rewarded here. Lauren had moved fast, talked sharp, treated governance like an obstacle, and now she was outside the room, not reprimanded, not publicly humiliated, just removed. Silently, completely, the kind of removal that doesn't show up in press releases or Slack channels. The kind where inboxes go dark, credentials disappear, and LinkedIn bios quietly shift to vague transitions about next chapters and exploring new challenges. Inside that room, the structure she tried to tear down had closed around her like a vault. And I didn't gloat, because I didn't win. I just remained. I didn't go back to the same desk. There was no welcome back email, no balloon bouquet or Slack thread announcing my return. Just a new key card waiting in a plain envelope. And a quiet message from the chairman's office. Conference room 6B, 8:00 a.m. They didn't ask me to rejoin the org chart. Instead, they offered something else. A direct advisory role. Quiet, internal, fully credentialed. I wasn't listed on the org chart. I didn't have a team, no dotted lines to manage or initiatives to brand. Just one function, final review on board-bound decisions. No one saw the shift happen, but they felt it. Budget approvals began running through new protocols. Contract terms came back with tighter language. A few junior execs were overheard asking, "Who's handling oversight now?" No one quite knew. The answer was, "I was." Silently. Lauren? She didn't last long after that session. Her badge was never reactivated. Her name disappeared from meeting invites within the week. There was no formal announcement, just absence. I heard from someone in legal that she tried to escalate a few issues through back channels, claimed her termination was premature, maybe even retaliatory. But the system logs didn't lie, and the chairman had already moved on. A month later, someone forwarded me a screenshot of her LinkedIn update. After a bold chapter driving strategic growth initiatives, I'm transitioning toward new opportunities focused on innovation and cross-functional leadership. Grateful for the journey. And the final line? Next time someone interrupts me mid-slide, they'll check the bylaws first. I didn't react, didn't share it, didn't gloat, because my return wasn't about her. It wasn't about punishment or proving anything. It was about balance. Restoring the logic that people like her try to bypass. Reaffirming that governance isn't ornamental, it's foundational. And some foundations don't crumble. They wait, then reset. Quietly, completely.